Hello everyone, warm welcome. I welcome you all on Regulatory Bodies YouTube channel by Testbook. My name is Madhav. I hope I'm audible, visible, everything is fine. We are good to go so that we can begin the discussion. So today in this particular session, we will be discussing many important questions along with the news discussion from the month of May and June, and these questions which we are going to discuss today, they are really very important, and directly or indirectly many questions will be visible in your examination itself. So before we start, may I have a reply that yes, I am audible, everything is fine, we are good to go, and I would request you quickly share the link of this session with your friends so that more and more students, they are aware that yes, the session is live and they can join us in this particular session itself. So once we are good to go, just give me yes sir in the comment section so that we can begin the discussion without any further delay. I hope you must have gone through with the video which I have already conducted for July and August, and I'm pretty sure after watching that video you must have realized yes, many questions directly or indirectly will be asked from this particular session itself. Keeping the same enthusiasm on, today also I will be trying my level best to cover the news in such a manner that if any question is asked in the examination from the given news, you will be in a position to answer them for sure. ठीक है जी, तो आज का सेशन थोड़ा लंबा रहने वाला है as usual, and I just want you all to join in large numbers. So I would request you, if you haven't shared the link of this session yet with your friends, quickly share it so that more and more students, they can join us live. ठीक है जी, स्टार्ट करें. Okay, so let's get started without any further delay. Let's get started with the first news of the evening. If you want to download the PDF, that will be available on my Telegram channel. You can download it from the same itself. Yes, it is first part only, and the one part only or only single video we will be completing the entire 2 months, May as well as June. ठीक है. अब हो सकता है कि यू मस्ट बी वंडरिंग कि सर आप मई या जून के लिए अलग अलग से क्लासेस क्यों नहीं ले रहे, या कुछ ऐसा तो नहीं है, आप मिस कर रहे हैं. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. एवरीथिंग इज बीइंग कवर्ड, सो देयर इज नथिंग टू वरी. आई हैव टेकन दिस, आई हैव मार्क्ड दिस पॉइंट वेरी ऑनेस्टली दैट आई शुड कवर ऑल द इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज व्हिच कैन बी आस्क्ड इन द एग्जामिनेशन. और बहुत सारी ऐसी न्यूज है जो कि एग्जामिनेशन में आने के जिनके चांसेस कम है. ऑब्वियसली मैंने उन न्यूज को इग्नोर भी किया है क्योंकि द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट मंथ इज May, June, July, August, but the priority increases as we move from May to August. ठीक है जी, क्लियर है, गुड टू गो. आई होप वी आर गुड टू गो. स्टार्ट करें, लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड. सिंधुजा, ऑब्वियसली बहुत सारे ऐसे न्यूज रहती हैं जो कि उस समय मैंने इंक्लूड नहीं की थी, बट लेटर ऑन आई रियलाइज्ड कि यहां से भी डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. थ्योरेटिकल बेसिस पे दैट न्यूज वर ऑलरेडी इंक्लूडेड इन माय पेड कोर्सेज नोट्स, बट ठीक है, वो पेड कोर्सेज के जो नोट्स के क्वेश्चंस थे दैट आई हैव इंक्लूडेड इन दी current YouTube sessions as well, so that I can give you a holistic coverage of the current affairs. Sorry, I'm really very sorry, Khushi. I will be uploading that PDF today itself after this session. Okay. Chalo, let's begin. Here we go with the first news. The first news is related to RBI's directions with respect to investment in alternative investment funds. So what it says, regulated entity अगर एक ऑल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड स्कीम में इन्वेस्ट करती है तो वो जो रेगुलेटेड एंटिटी है दैट मस्ट बी कीपिंग इन माइंड सर्टेन क्राइटेरियाज. द फर्स्ट क्राइटेरिया इज रेगुलेटेड एंटिटी कैन इन्वेस्ट अप टू हाउ मच % ऑफ द कॉर्पस वैल्यू. तो अगर आपकी स्कीम वैल्यू जो भी है, सिंगल रेगुलेटेड एंटिटी जो है दैट कैन इन्वेस्ट अप टू 10%, एंड इफ आई कंबाइन ऑल द रेगुलेटेड एंटिटीज देन देयर इन्वेस्टमेंट should be up to what value. अगर मैं collective बात करूं, if I talk about the collective, so the collective investment can be up to 15%, लेकिन उसमें एक clause है, it can be increased by 5%, so in some special cases it can even go to 20%. This is something which you need to remember. ठीक है. उसके अलावा जो important point है जो कि recently डिस्कस किया गया था, वो रिसेंटली डिस्कस ये किया गया था इन दी लेटेस्ट न्यूज कि सर अगर आप बात कर रहे हैं फॉर alternative investment fund scheme. If this alternative investment fund scheme is investing in a company, let's say XYZ, and this XYZ company has already borrowed funds from a regulated entity, then we will call it as what, sir? We will call it as downstream investment. And in case of downstream investment, regulated entity is asked to maintain a provisioning of 100%. तो उनका जो एक्सपोजर है, अपने एक्सपोजर के इक्विवेलेंट दे शुड बी मेंटेनिंग 100% ऑफ द प्रोविजनिंग. एग्जांपल के तौर पे अगर मैं कहूं, मान लो कि ये जो अल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड स्कीम है, दिस इज ऑफ 100 करोड़. Regulated entity can invest up to 100 crores, up to 10 crores as 10%. अब ये alternative investment fund ने 30% इन्वेस्ट किया इन दी XYZ कंपनी विच इज ऑलरेडी दी borrower फ्रॉम द regulated entity. तो इस बैंक का या इस regulated entity का एक्सपोजर कितना है सर? 10 करोड़ का 30%, क्योंकि आपने 10 करोड़ पूरा AIF को दिया, AIF ने पूरे में से 30% इन्वेस्ट किया कहां? So they have invested 30% in the company which is already a debt company for the regulated entity. तो उनका ये जो 3 करोड़ का एक्सपोजर है, that will attract provisioning of 100%. That will attract provisioning of 100%. ठीक है जी, ये पॉइंट क्लियर है? इसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम, इसमें कोई इशू है तो आप एक बार मुझे बता दीजिए, अदरवाइज आई विल बी मूविंग अहेड. सोच लीजिए, इसमें अगर कोई भी प्रॉब्लम है तो आप मुझे बता दीजिए, देन आई विल बी मूविंग अहेड. ठीक है, दीज आर दी कंडीशंस. इसमें एक दो कंडीशंस और हैं विच आई विल बी डिस्कसिंग क्विकली विद यू ऑल, एंड दैट इज बेसिकली रिलेटेड टू द इन्वेस्टमेंट टाइप. अगर आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट टाइप ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट में कुछ प्रायोरिटीज फिक्स्ड है, तो इन केस ऑफ फिक्स्ड प्रायोरिटीज व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन सर? इन केस ऑफ फिक्स्ड प्रायोरिटीज द थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू बी वेरी डिफरेंट, एंड इन दैट पर्टिकुलर केस यू हैव टू डिडक्ट दैट इक्विवेलेंट वैल्यू. You have to deduct that equivalent value from what, sir? You have to deduct that equivalent value from your capital, which will decrease your capital value, जिसकी वजह से आपकी प्रोविजनिंग के लिए आपको और ज्यादा कैपिटल की रिक्वायरमेंट होगी. ठीक है, देखना जरा. इफेक्टिव है 1 जनवरी 2026. बैंक्स जो है it is applicable on banks, cooperative banks, as well as all India financial institutes, as well as NBFCs, including housing finance companies. Debtor company, यहाँ पे हमारे एग्जाम्पल में XYZ is the debtor company with respect to the regulated entity. और इक्विटी इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स की अगर मैं बात करूं, इक्विटी शेयर्स, कंपल्सरी कन्वर्टेबल प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स, कंपल्सरी कन्वर्टेबल डिबेंचर्स will not be included. only and only the loan given will mark the term, that is debtor company. ठीक है, अब इसमें अगर हम इन्वेस्टमेंट की बात करें, every regulated entity they must have a board approved investment policy for AIF participation. Single regulated entity का cap है 10%, all the regulated entities 15%. In some cases you may get up to, or you may go up to 20% in some cases. अगर आप 5% तक इन्वेस्ट करते हैं in a regulated entity is investing up to 5%, तो उस केस में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. बट अगर if you are investing more than 5%, then in that particular case, if it is more than 5% of investment in the alternative investment fund scheme, and scheme invest downstream debt in the regulators or regulatory entity debtor company, then in that particular case what will be the provisioning? सर उस केस में provisioning कितनी होगी? 100%. माने कि ये जो 10 करोड़ था 10% है, तो provisioning करनी होगी. अगर regulated entity 5% से कम इन्वेस्ट करती है इस alternative investment fund कंपनी में या स्कीम में, then in that particular case there is no boundation, there is no criteria. ठीक है जी. अब इसमें एक और पॉइंट है कि regulated entity which are investing in the subordinate units of alternative investment fund with the model where they have the priority distribution model. प्रायोरिटी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मॉडल में जहां पे आप प्रायोरिटी सेट करते हैं किसको कब कितना पैसा देना होगा, उस प्रायोरिटी सेट मॉडल में यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड वन थिंग, दैट इन केस ऑफ प्रायोरिटी सेट मॉडल you will be deducting your entire exposure from the capital fund. That means आपका जो capital fund है वो decrease हो जाएगा, and equal value will be deducted from tier 1 as well as tier 2. Exceptions, they are always allowed. Legacy investment are valid and exempted from the 10% or 20% limit. मतलब जो RBI के prior approvals की वजह से investment हुई है, they are allowed. There is no issue with that. अब अगर हम transitional agreements की बात करें, existing जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हैं, they will be committed, they will be accepted, no issues. But from 1st January 2026 अगर कोई नई इन्वेस्टमेंट होगी then in that case of new investment these criterias are need to be followed. ठीक है, क्लियर हो गया पॉइंट, समझ आ गया, इजी है. क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करते हैं. क्वेश्चन देखना. With reference to the RBI investment in alternative investment fund direction 2025, which is effective from 1st of January 2026, consider the following statement. A single regulated entity cannot invest more than 10% of the corpus of any alternative investment scheme. That is true. If a regulated entity investment is exceeding 5%, then alternative investment fund has downstream debt exposure to the regulated entity's debtor company, then the regulated entity must make 100% provisioning, including for the exposure through the equity shares, CCD and all. तो क्या ये पॉइंट सही है? ध्यान से देखना. सब 5% वाला पॉइंट बिल्कुल ठीक है, डेटर्स कंपनी वाला पॉइंट बिल्कुल ठीक है, लेकिन उसके साथ एक और पॉइंट आ गया. वो क्या? दैट पॉइंट सेज you will be including the exposure through equity shares, compulsory convertible preference shares, compulsory convertible debentures. Then my answer is no. This should be excluding this. So second statement is wrong. Investment by regulated entity in the subordinated unit of alternative investment fund with a priority distribution model be fully deducted from both tier 1 and tier 2 capital. That is absolutely correct. Legacy investment 10% और 20% के कैप पर exempted होगी. That is true. अब अगर उसके बाद बात करें for commitment made before 1st January 2026 may selectively apply provisions of both old circulars and new directions depending on the convenience. नहीं सर, convenience नहीं है. 1 जनवरी के बाद वही इंप्लीमेंट होगा, उसके बाद या उससे पहले आप जो भी इंप्लीमेंट करना चाहें द करंट सिनेरियोज विल बी इंप्लीमेंटेड. ठीक है. अब उसके बेसिस पे अगर मैं कहूं कि कौन कौन सी स्टेटमेंट्स करेक्ट है, तो मेरे हिसाब से फर्स्ट इज करेक्ट, थर्ड इज करेक्ट एज वेल एज फोर्थ स्टेटमेंट इज करेक्ट. तो उसके हिसाब से जो हमारा आंसर बनेगा दैट विल बी व्हाट सर? आवर करेक्ट आंसर वुड बी द बी ऑप्शन. आवर करेक्ट आंसर वुड बी द बी ऑप्शन. ठीक है जी, क्लियर हो गया? इज दिस पॉइंट क्लियर? ओके, जस्ट गिव मी अ सेकंड. Got it. So B option is going to be the correct answer for the given question. Moving on to the next news. The next news is related to IMF's July 2025 World Economic Outlook report. ये जो जुलाई में World Economic Outlook report IMF ने प्रेजेंट की थी, वो जुलाई के न्यूज वाले सेशन में मिस हो गई थी. So I have included in this session. Nothing to worry. Highlights global resilience and amid uncertainty with India retaining its position as world's fastest growing major economy. तो IMF की जो वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक आउटलुक रिपोर्ट है उसके हिसाब से भी इंडिया इज स्टिल द टॉप और इंडिया इज स्टिल द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग मेजर इकोनॉमी. फाइनेंशियल ईयर 2026 में जो जीडीपी ग्रोथ अब एस्टिमेटेड है दैट हैज बीन रिवाइज्ड फ्रॉम 6.2 टू 6.4%. फॉर द नेक्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर इट विल बी 6.4%. बट अगर आप कैलेंडर ईयर्स की बात करेंगे, इन कैलेंडर ईयर्स 2025 it is 6.7%. In calendar year 2026 it's going to be 6.4%. These are the data which you need to remember. What are the drivers of growth? So drivers of growth include robust domestic demand, strong investment momentum and India's role as a global growth engine. तो ये आपके क्या बन जाते हैं? So they are basically the drivers which has resulted in this particular growth. अब अगर हम ग्लोबल आउटलुक की बात करें तो कैलेंडर ईयर 2025 में जो ग्रोथ है, ग्लोबल ग्रोथ, वो पहले 2.8% एस्टिमेटेड थी बट नाउ इट इज एस्टिमेटेड टू बी 3% एंड इन 2026 इट इज एस्टिमेटेड टू बी 3.1%. स्टिल अगर हम बात करें ग्लोबल ग्रोथ की, इट इज स्टिल बिलो द प्री पैंडेमिक एवरेज बिकॉज द प्री पैंडेमिक एवरेज वाज 3.7% एंड इन 2024 आल्सो द ग्रोथ वाज 3.3%. उससे भी कम ग्रोथ हम देखने वाले हैं. द रीजन इज क्वाइट ऑब्वियस, जियोपॉलिटिकल टेंशंस एज वेल एज द tariff issues which are going on and many other things. So stronger than the expected demand despite tariff concerns, lower than expected US tariff hikes, improved financial conditions in key economics. These are the growth revision drivers. These are the growth revision drivers specifically for Asia as well as India. अब अगर मैं ग्लोबल इन्फ्लेशन आउटलुक की बात करूं तो हेडलाइन इन्फ्लेशन 4.2% ग्लोबल लेवल पे एंड फॉर 2026 it is 3.6%. Again at global level there will be a decline steady due to monetary tightening which has been done by most of the nations. Easing supply chains and moderating commodity prices are the reasons because of which we are expecting the given inflation estimates, and we are talking about the headline inflation estimates. ठीक है जी, पॉइंट क्लियर हो गया, समझ आ गया. नाउ लेट्स ट्राई टू सॉल्व अ क्वेश्चन. क्वेश्चन क्या कहता है, ध्यान से देखना. India's financial year 2025-26 growth forecast was revised upward 6.4%, slightly below the RBI estimates, because RBI has estimated that Indian economy will grow by what percent? Sir, Indian economy will grow by 6.5%. Indian economy will grow by 6.5%. Global growth forecast for both the calendar year 2025-2026 has been upgraded compared to April 2025, but it still remains below the pre-pandemic data. That is absolutely correct. IMF cited stronger demand despite tariff hikes, lower than feared US tariffs, and easing the financial conditions as a reason for global growth upgrade as well as for the growth of Asian countries and economies like India. The global inflation outlook for calendar year 2025 was revised downward in comparison to April. अप्रैल के मुकाबले क्या कंपैरिजन में पीछे की है, नीचे की है इन्फ्लेशन टारगेट्स को? नहीं सर, दे हैव बीन इंक्रीज नॉट डिक्रीज्ड. इंडियाज कैलेंडर ईयर 2025 ग्रोथ प्रोजेक्शन इज 6.7%, विच इज हायर देन द फाइनेंशियल ईयर फोरकास्ट ऑफ 6.4%. ये बिल्कुल ठीक है. तो इस हिसाब से अगर हम देखें 1, 2, 3, 5 आर करेक्ट, बट द फोर्थ स्टेटमेंट इज रॉन्ग, सो आंसर इज गोइंग टू बी बी ऑप्शन. बहुत बढ़िया, जिन लोगों ने करेक्ट आंसर दिया है, दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. Just go on guys, just read this question and give me a second. Just go on with the question. I'll be right back. Just give me a second. So let's go with the next news. The next news is about a tie-up. Worldline, which is a global leader in payment services, has recently partnered with Cosmos Cooperative Bank, one of the India's oldest urban cooperative bank, to modernize its infrastructure and expand digital banking to underserved population. So what is the aim of this particular collaboration? So the aim of this particular collaboration is upgrade outdated systems and align with India's push for financial inclusion, provide integrated payment acceptance solution for both financial and non-financial use cases with real-time analytics, ensure scalable and efficient infrastructure to handle growing transactions in the rural and semi-urban areas, offer value-added services like digital onboarding, EMI conversions, cashbacks, and whatnot, strengthen strategic positioning. Then in that particular case, Cosmos Bank gains competitiveness while Worldline deepens its footprints in India's cooperative banking sector. तो इससे दोनों को फायदा हो रहा है. Worldline का presence इंडिया में ज्यादा हो रहा है और the cooperative bank, they will be becoming more competitive in the current scenario. This is obviously going to contribute to the wider nation goals such as Digital India, G20 financial inclusion priorities, as well as digital public infrastructure expansion. तो आपको याद क्या रखना है, Worldline has tied up with Cosmos Cooperative Bank, which is one of the oldest urban cooperative bank of the country. अब इसके बेसिस पे कैसे क्वेश्चन बन सकता है वो ध्यान से देखिएगा. With reference to the Worldline Cosmos Cooperative Bank partnership, consider the following statements. First one, the partnership aims primarily at providing blockchain-based cross-border payment solutions for the cooperative banks. No sir, यहाँ पे ये जो tie-up, it is not related to the cross-border payments. The next is a notable feature of the collaboration is the use of 360-degree real-time analytics for understanding customer behavior with possible social sector insights. That is true. Cosmos Bank will be able to modernize its legacy system That is true. Collaboration emphasizes both scalability and financial inclusion. That is true. This initiative aligns with India's digital public infrastructure, Digital India program, and G20 financial inclusion targets. That is also true. So keeping all these points in mind, answer is going to be B option. 2, 3, 4 and 5 are correct, but the first statement is wrong. यहाँ पे जो tie up हुआ है, this tie-up has nothing to do. This tie-up has nothing to do with the cross-border transactions, or this tie-up is not basically to boost the cross-border transactions. Got it? Moving on to the fourth question. The news is SEBI, in collaboration with stock exchanges, has recently revised enhanced surveillance mechanism for small cap and micro cap companies with market capitalization below 1000 crores, and it was effective from 28th of July 2025. What are these changes? So these changes are, we will be discussing, but what will be the impact of these changes? So the impact of these changes will be, it will strengthen the oversight, it will enhance transparency and protect investors in this volatile segment. तो बैकग्राउंड के बारे में थोड़ी सी बात कर लेते हैं. अगस्त 2023 में enhanced surveillance mechanism was introduced. Basically, the aim was to curb excessive volatility and speculative activity, especially in the small and micro cap stocks. So stocks are reviewed weekly for upgradation, downgrading, or exclusion. Purpose of the revision is safeguard investors from manipulation, flag risk of artificial price, and as well as apply tiered monitoring based on price trends as well as valuation indicators. अब इसमें क्या क्या enhancements की बात की गई है? पहली स्टेज है क्राइटेरिया. Earlier based mainly on extremely high लो प्राइस वेरिएशन, बट ऐसा नहीं है. पहले सिर्फ हाई और लो प्राइस वेरिएशन के ऊपर बात की जाती थी, अब ऐसा नहीं है. इट विल इंक्लूड 3 months सस्टेन्ड अपवर्ड क्लोज टू क्लोज प्राइस ट्रेंड, कैप्चर्स अनयूजुअल आर्टिफिशियल बिल्ड अप्स एज वेल. तो अब क्या होगा सर, अब सिर्फ ये नहीं कि हाई और लो वेरिएशन कितना है उसके बेसिस पे आप आइडेंटिफाई करोगे, नहीं. नाउ यू विल बी आइडेंटिफाइंग ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ 3 months सस्टेन्ड अपवर्ड जो क्लोज टू क्लोज प्राइस ट्रेंड है, और उसके साथ आप कैप्चर करेंगे द अनयूजुअल आर्टिफिशियल बिल्डअप्स. सेकेंड पॉइंट इज, और द स्टेज 2 इज बेसिकली it introduced PE ratio filter for escalating or for the acceleration from stage 1 to stage 2. अब अगर मैं PE ratio की बात करूं, what do you understand by the term PE ratio, guys? What do you understand by the word PE ratio? Any idea? सुना सुनाया वर्ड होना चाहिए, इसके बारे में आपको जरूर पता होना चाहिए. This is something which is really very important with respect to the companies, organizations. This price to earning ratio. It is basically the share price, and we compare the share price with the earnings per share to find out the price to earning ratio. So in that particular context, the stock can move to stage 2 only if its PE is less than or equals to 2 into Nifty 500 PE ratio. Ensure highly overvalued stocks are caught under tight rules. तो आप tight जो रूल्स बनाए हैं उसमें आप चाहते हैं कि जो स्टॉक्स हैं जो ओवर वैल्यूड हुए उन्हें आप आसानी से आइडेंटिफाई कर सके. उसमें ये कहा गया कि जो आपका पीई रेशियो है दैट शुड बी लेस देन और इक्वल्स टू 2 times द निफ्टी 500 पीई रेशियो. सर्वेलेंस रिस्ट्रिक्शंस की बात करें, स्टेज 1 में 100% मार्जिन, ट्रेड फॉर ट्रेड सेटलमेंट, 5% प्राइस बैंड. स्टेज 2 में देयर विल बी स्ट्रिक्ट सेटलमेंट एंड मार्जिन नॉर्म्स एज पर आरबीआई directions, and trade for trade compulsory delivery settlement and no speculative intraday activity will be allowed. अब इसका impact क्या होगा सर? About 28 companies which are currently under enhanced surveillance mechanism will be directly affected. Framework जो है वो improve करेगा investors protection, transparency, regulatory oversight of small and micro कैप स्टॉक्स. स्मॉल एंड माइक्रो कैप स्टॉक्स मतलब वो स्टॉक्स जिनका मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन इज बिलो 1000 करोड़ रुपीस. ठीक है जी. अब इस क्वेश्चन को पढ़ते हैं, सॉल्व करने की कोशिश करते हैं. द रिवाइज स्टेज 1 क्राइटेरिया नाउ इंक्लूड द एनालिसिस ऑफ सस्टेन्ड अपवर्ड क्लोज टू क्लोज प्राइस ट्रेंड ओवर द लास्ट 3 months in addition to extreme price variation. That is a true statement. एक्सकलेशन ऑफ स्टॉक, एक स्टॉक स्टेज 1 से स्टेज 2 में कब जाएगा उसके लिए कंडीशन है पी रेशियो जो है दैट शुड बी लेस देन और इक्वल्स टू 2 times द निफ्टी 500 पी रेशियो. तो जो निफ्टी 500 की पी रेशियो है उससे अगर 2 टाइम्स कम है देन ओनली इट विल बी इंक्लूडेड अंडर स्टेज 2, और स्टेज 2 में जाने से आपके ऊपर जो कंडीशंस है, जो नॉर्म्स है, दैट विल डिफर एज वी डिस्कस्ड. ट्रेड फॉर ट्रेड सेटलमेंट अंडर स्टेज 1 इंश्योर्स कंपल्सरी डिलीवरी. कंपल्सरी डिलीवरी का मतलब कि भैया अब आप अगर आप इन्वॉल्व होंगे इन ट्रेड, यू हैव टू सेटल डाउन द ट्रेड बाय कंप्लीटिंग द ट्रांजैक्शन. यू हैव टू सेटल डाउन द ट्रेड बाय कंप्लीटिंग द ट्रांजैक्शन. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप ट्रेड की ट्रांजैक्शन को बिना कंप्लीट किए यू कैन मूव अहेड, दैट इज नॉट अलाउड. सो दिस इज करेक्ट. अंडर स्टेज 1 द प्राइस बैंड इज फिक्स्ड एट 10% ऑफ ऑल स्मॉल कैप कंपनीज. नहीं सर, ऐसा कुछ तो नहीं बताया. सेबी कंडक्ट्स वीकली रिव्यू टू डिसाइड वेदर स्टॉक शुड मूव बिटवीन ईएसएम स्टेजेस और एग्जिट द फ्रेमवर्क. बिल्कुल सर, यहाँ पे जो रिव्यूज है अगर आप ध्यान से देखें तो यहाँ पे बहुत क्लियरली ये पॉइंट मेंशन था दैट रिव्यू विल बी डन, द रिव्यू विल बी डन ऑन वीकली बेसिस. सो हियर द रिव्यू will be done on weekly basis, and that point has been very clearly mentioned. तो उसके हिसाब से अगर हम आंसर पे चले, what will be the answer to the given question? Sir, answer to the given question will be A option. अगर आप आंसर की तरफ बढ़ते हैं तो आंसर क्या बनेगा सर? A ऑप्शन बनेगा, क्योंकि 1, 2, 3 and 5 आर करेक्ट, तो उसके हिसाब से हमारा A ऑप्शन करेक्ट आंसर बन जाएगा. Got it? Moving on to the next. The next news we have is women online banking participation in rural India. So there was a report which was published. उस रिपोर्ट में बताया गया और डिस्कस किया गया about the women's online banking participation in rural India. इसमें क्या क्या फाइंडिंग्स थी? पहला, रूरल women's online bankings 30% in 2025, which was 17.1% in the previous year. So there is a strong rise. Youth, women aged between 15 to 24 years using online banking is around 51.4% out of the total women, and it has doubled with respect to the previous data. Rural men is 73.3%. There is a huge jump from 40 to 73%. Urban online banking की बात करें तो 62.4% of individuals with age 15 years plus in urban areas, they are using the online banking, and national average rural plus urban is 48.9%. UPI is obviously dominating rural areas में, it is 86%, urban areas में it is 74%. Online purchases की बात करें 24.5% household purchased online in last 30 days. तो अगर हम last 30 days में बात करें online purchases में 24.5% households they are purchasing online goods in last 30 days. Internet usage की बात करें तो rural females they are 57.6% using the internet, rural males 72.1%. There is an increase in both of it. So basically rural and urban comparison में, women and male comparison में, obviously there is still a inequality between men's and women, but in comparison to the previous data they both have improved. In comparison to previous data they both have improved. You need to remember that particular point. ठीक है जी. अब इस क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व करते हैं. ऑब्वियसली ये क्वेश्चन डेटा ओरिएंटेड है. अब इस क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व करने का तरीका भी बताऊंगा, ध्यान रखना. सबसे पहला, इन रूरल इंडिया 30% ऑफ वुमेन रिपोर्टेड ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग कैपेबिलिटीज इन 2025, जो कि पहले 17.1% था. इज इट करेक्ट? यस सर, बिल्कुल करेक्ट है. ये देखो फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट ही है, ये डेटा बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो दिस इज करेक्ट. Rural men participation is 73.3%, which has increased in comparison to the previous data. अगर हम previous data की बात करें तो previous data के comparison में it has increased to 73.3%. ये तो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर ध्यान से देखेंगे तो एग्जामिनर ने आपको यहाँ फंसाने की कोशिश की है, because it has increased from 40%. ये 40% से इंक्रीज हुआ है, ना कि 59.5% से. तो दिस इज अ रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट टेक्निकली. अमंग यंग रूरल वुमेन 15 to 24 years, over half of them 51.4% are capable of online banking. That is correct, बिल्कुल सही है. UPI accounts for the majority online transactions. रूरल में 86.7% and urban में 74.4%. That is correct. Over the last 30 days, 24.5% rural household made online purchases, which is higher than the percentage in urban areas. नहीं सर, ये 24.5% तो ठीक है, लेकिन अर्बन एरिया में ये जो परसेंटेज थी दैट वाज 39.4%, बिकॉज ऑफ विच द फिफ्थ स्टेटमेंट इज रॉन्ग. सो आंसर इज गोइंग टू बी बी ऑप्शन. 1, 3 एंड 4 आर करेक्ट. ठीक है जी, क्लियर हो गया, समझ आया. अगला क्वेश्चन, अगला क्वेश्चन देखो. अगला क्वेश्चन हैज रिलेटेड टू ADB, that is Asian Development Bank 5-year urban infrastructure plan in India. So ADB announced a transformative 5-year plan to mobilize around $10 billion, including private capital, for urban infrastructure. What will be the focus? So the focus is metro expansion, new RRTS corridor. What is this RRTS? Guys, what is this RRTS? Any idea? Have you heard this word earlier? Have you heard this word earlier? That is RRTS corridor. मेरठ कुछ याद आया? मेरठ कुछ याद आया? नहीं, मैं बता दूं. इट इज रीजनल रैपिड ट्रांजिट सिस्टम. इट इज रीजनल रैपिड ट्रांजिट सिस्टम. जैसे दिल्ली, गाजियाबाद, मेरठ को जोड़ा गया. देन वी आर एमिंग दिल्ली टू पानीपत. सो दैट इज रीजनल रैपिड ट्रांजिट सिस्टम. सो दैट इज अगेन अ टारगेट. अर्बन चैलेंज फंड्स, $3 million technical aid for project design, government capacity building and studies in 100 cities. तो $3 million तो सिर्फ स्टडी के लिए खर्च होगा. फिर पॉपुलेशन इन सिटीज ग्रेटर देन 40% बाय 2030. टारगेट है कि जो पॉपुलेशन है सिटीज की वो ग्रेटर देन 40% होगी आउट ऑफ द टोटल पॉपुलेशन बाय 2030, जिससे ADB wants that the cities need to be ready, and in order to make them ready to accommodate such a high population, for that this expansion, this development is required. Urban portfolio की अगर हम बात करें, 27 loans worth $5.15 billion and $4 billion for metro projects. तो यहाँ पे 27 loans $5.15 billion के और $4 billion for metro projects के लिए सैंक्शन किए जाएंगे. Beyond cities, focus will be on rural development with including food system, entrepreneurship, job creation. Financing में $4 to $4.5 billion annually in sovereign loans will be funded, plus $1 billion in the private funding. Country partnership strategy 2023-27, $5 billion plus each year, including $1 billion of non-sovereign operations will be included. So this is basically the announcement which has been done by ADB. और ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड ये है कि अगर हम सिंस 1986 देखें, टोटल $59.5 billion sovereign and $9.1 billion non-sovereign यानी प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट has already come or has been already received from Asian Development Bank. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है. यहां से एग्जामिनेशन में क्वेश्चन बनने के पूरे चांसेस हैं. क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करते हैं. The plan will mobilize up to $15 billion. No sir, इस प्लान के तहत जो मोबिलाइजेशन होगा that will be of how many billion dollars? That will be of $10 billion. लगभग $3 billion खर्च होंगे for technical support under Urban Challenge Fund for the project design, government capacity building. True. ADB's current urban portfolio include 27 loans worth $5.15 billion with additional $4 billion dollar loans for metro projects covering 300 kilometers in 8 cities. बिल्कुल सही डेटा. Under its country partnership strategy 2023-27, ADB is prepared to provide over $5 billion annually sovereign lending and $1 billion in the non-sovereign operations. बिल्कुल सही है. और आज तक के अगर हम पोर्टफोलियो की बात करें, sovereign portfolio $59.5 billion का है and non-sovereign investment is $9.1 billion. This data is also correct. So answer is going to be B option, except first. Rest all the options are absolutely correct. Moving on to the next news. Next news कहती है RBI Climate Risk Information System. So RBI has launched RBI CRIS, which is a two data platform to address gaps in the climate related financial information. Objective क्या है सर? Objective है standardize करना, provide करना data on physical risk, transition risk, carbon emission risk for Indian financial institutes. अब इसमें क्या क्या डिटेल्स है? पहला, disclosure and innovation. So RBI is finalizing a disclosure framework for climate related financial risk कि भैया किस बेसिस पे, किस फॉर्मेट में, क्या क्या चीजों को ध्यान में रखते हुए क्लाइमेट रिस्क को लिंक किया जाएगा विद द फाइनेंशियल रिस्क. इट विल प्रमोट इनोवेशन वाया ऑन टैप कोहर्ट on climate risk and sustainable finance under regulatory sandbox. Greenathon to encourage green finance solutions in the country. What are the components of RBI CRIS? Sir, it will be a web-based directory जहाँ पे एक list data source होगा for meteorological, geospatial and all. Restricted access portal for regulated financial institute which will provide proceeds, standardized and data sets, but it will be restricted only and only for the regulated financial institutes, not for everyone like you and me. Climate risk में हम बात करेंगे physical risk की, that is losses from the natural disaster like floods, cyclones, tsunami. It requires hazard data, geographic suspectability, vulnerability data like historical financial losses and whatnot. Second is transition risk, risk from the policy, technology or market changes towards low carbon economy which requires information on sectoral emission, carbon pricing and decarbonization pathway. इसका impact क्या होगा सर? ये facilitate करेगा rigorous climate risk evaluations. It will support informed decision making in the India's financial sector. So this is basically the initiative taken by RBI related to climate risk information system. ठीक है जी. ऑन टैप का मतलब जब आपका मन करे जाके अप्लाई कर दो, आरबीआई अगर एक्सेप्ट करेगा देन योर प्रोडक्ट, योर ऐप, योर इनोवेशन विल बी टेस्टेड लाइव on the regulatory box, on the regulatory sandbox. Now let's talk about the question. RBI's CRIS consists of public web-based directory and restricted access portal for the regulated financial institutes. That is true. The system will focus only on physical risk which are arising from natural disaster. Only word गलत है. Physical risk को target करेगा, that is correct. लेकिन only physical risk, that is wrong. Transition risk in RBI CRIS are linked to policy, technology, market shift towards a low carbon economy. That is absolutely correct. Hazard and vulnerability data are required so that we can estimate the physical risk कि भैया इस particular state में, इस particular city में, इस particular region में पहले कितनी बार flood आया, उससे कितना नुकसान हुआ, उस data के basis पे ही you will be calculating the risk estimates for the future. That is true. Risk CRIS, RBI CRIS was first proposed during the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in October 2024. ये सही है. So answer is going to be B option. 1, 3, 4 and 5 are correct, but the second statement is wrong. Brunal, Anuj, Mukesh, Vinu, Ankul, absolutely correct. B option is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. RBI's efforts to internationalize Indian rupee. अब मैं अगर RBI के efforts की बात करूं to internationalize Indian rupee, तो उसमें एक तो सबसे important है, that is wash-through accounts, which we call it as special rupee wash-through account, and these special rupee wash-through account surplus can now be invested in the government securities. So this is basically an initiative to support the surplus funds in the special rupee wash-through account so that the countries, the companies, the banks, they should hold these accounts, which will lead to settlement of international trade in INR and it will result in internationalization of Indian rupees. इसके अलावा RBI ने क्या क्या proposals दी हैं? Domestic banks and their foreign branches can lend in INR to the non-resident. तो यहाँ पे कहा गया कि अब अगर आपकी कोई domestic bank है, उसकी branch या foreign bank भी है या foreign branch भी है, वो भी चाहे तो loan provide कर सकते हैं to the non-residents in INR. Initial focus will be on neighboring South Asian countries. That is very important point to note down. 2024 financial year में exports to South Asia was $25 billion with 90% to these 4 countries. Significant potential for INR lending as well as internationalization of Indian rupees. Non-residents, they can now open INR account outside India in the Indian bank's foreign branch. That is also allowed. RBI removed caps on foreign banks wash-through account buying short-term sovereign debt. तो अगर आप एक short-term sovereign debt borrow कर रहे हैं तो उस केस में अब कोई cap नहीं है. Currently the foreign branches of the Indian banks can lend only in the foreign currencies, but now they are allowed to lend in the Indian rupees as well. Rupee liquidity abroad is mostly through the government credit lines or bilateral swaps. RBI is aiming to allow the commercial banks to provide liquidity based on market conditions. So India has local currency agreements with UAE, Indonesia, Maldives, where India is making the transactions with these nations in the local currencies rather than depending on US dollar. ठीक है जी? तो these are some of the proposals which have been given by RBI and initiatives which have been taken by RBI to promote internationalization of Indian rupee. उसके बेसिस पे क्वेश्चन बनाया गया. RBI proposes that domestic banks and their foreign branches lend in INR to non-residents, initially focusing on Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka. Is this point correct, sir? Absolutely correct. Nothing wrong in this. Second question, second point says currently foreign branches of Indian banks can already provide loans. ना सर, अभी तो वो सिर्फ फॉरेन करेंसी में लोन दे रहे हैं, बट इस प्रपोजल के बाद RBI is asking them to do that. Non-residents are now allowed to open INR account outside India. True. RBI has removed the cap on foreign banks with Vostro account for buying short-term Indian sovereign debts. True. India has local currency agreements with countries like UAE, Indonesia, Maldives. That is also true. So keeping that in mind, what will be the answers? And now answer की बात करें, then the answer to this particular question will be, except second statement, all the other statements are correct. So answer will be 1, 3, 4, 5. तो 1, 3, 4, 5 के हिसाब से जो हमारी करेक्ट ऑप्शन बनेगी, दैट विल बी बी ऑप्शन इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग. ठीक है जी, क्लियर हो गया, समझ आ गया, बढ़िया. चलो, मजा आ रहा है. आई होप यू आर एंजॉइंग. मैंने इस बार एक चेंज किया, हर न्यूज पे जो मैं पहले 2 क्वेश्चंस लेके आ रहा था, मैंने उसको रिड्यूस करके 1 क्वेश्चन कर दिया. एंड आई एम प्रीटी श्योर यू मस्ट बी एंजॉइंग. एंड इफ इट इज क्लियर एंड यू आर एंजॉइंग, डू लेट मी नो इन द कमेंट सेक्शन विद यस सर. ठीक है ना? किसी ने कमेंट किया था कि सर पहले आप एक क्वेश्चन दे रहे हैं, फिर उसकी न्यूज को पढ़ा रहे हैं, फिर क्वेश्चन पे आ रहे हैं, उसको थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है. सीधी न्यूज फिर क्वेश्चन कर लीजिए, मैंने वही कर लिया. आई गेस मजा आ रहा होगा. चलो, मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. डिजिटल पेमेंट फ्रॉड्स इन इंडिया. तो एक डेटा आया था रिलेटेड टू द डिजिटल पेमेंट फ्रॉड्स इन इंडिया, और ये डेटा वाज रिपोर्टेड इन पार्लियामेंट 2025 and it says that the data is not alarming. Actually क्या हुआ था, there was a political issue जहाँ पे ये कहा गया कि बहुत सारे डिजिटल पेमेंट फ्रॉड्स हो रहे हैं, और ये बात अनऑफिशियली पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज ने एक दूसरे पे क्लेम की. तो उस चीज को आंसर करने के लिए देयर वाज अ स्टेटमेंट गिवन दैट दीज फ्रॉड डेटा इज नॉट अलार्मिंग, should not be confused with other types of banking frauds that may affect public trust. So data highlight क्या है? Total cases in last 10 years is 63,315 under the category card and internet as well as digital payments. Monetary loss is 733 crore rupees. Cases with value greater than 1 lakh is only involved in this particular calculation. RBI ने क्या क्या इस पे regulatory measures लिए? RBI norms on digital payment security controls has been already provided in Feb 2021, where the minimum security standards for internet banking, mobile banking and card payments have been introduced. AI-based tool Mule Hunter has been introduced to detect money mule accounts. Collaborating agencies, Finance Ministry, RBI as well as NPCI, they have collectively given the data, and on the basis of the data shared by all 3 of them, this conclusion has been given. So on this basis, there is a question. The question says, over the last 10 years, the digital payment fraud cases is of values of number 63,315. Is this point correct? Is this point correct? So that is correct, but there is a condition. Condition क्या सर? इन cases का count है उन cases की बात कर रहे हैं जिनमें fraud value was greater than 1 lakh. Total reported loss is around 733 crores. That is also correct. RBI issued guidelines, or RBI issued digital payment security norms in February 2021, mandating common minimum security standards. True. NPC and RBI have developed AI-based tool called Mule Hunter to identify fraud accounts. That is true. Digital payment fraud in India is not alarming, and it should not be confused with the overall banking related frauds. So as per this, answer is going to be again the B option. 1, 2, 3, 4 is correct. समझ आया? Moving on to the next. The next news is RBI penalties on regulated entities. तो हमारे पास 2024-25 का डेटा है. उस 2024-25 के डेटा में RBI ने 353 पेनल्टीज चार्ज की है एंड द वैल्यू ऑफ पेनल्टी इज 54.78 crores, which is not a very major source of revenue for RBI, but it is done in order to bound the RBIs to achieve the RBI norms. So nature of contraventions were related to cyber security framework non-compliance, exposure norms, KYC directions, fraud classification and reporting directions, reporting information on CRILC, submission of credit information to credit information companies. तो इन सारे compliances को banks ने या regulated entities ने fulfill नहीं किया. On that particular basis, RBI has charged these penalties. सबसे ज़्यादा जो penalties charge हुई है, they have been charged on cooperative banks in terms of number, as well as in terms of value. In terms of number as well as in terms of value. Second number pe we have NBFCs in terms of number. On the third we have housing companies in terms of number. On the fourth rank we have public sector banks in terms of number. But if I talk about public sector bank and private banks, private bank is on the second rank and public sector bank is on the third rank in terms of amount of penalty. But what I believe is examiner is going to ask you the trend. पहले तो पूछेगा नहीं, अगर पूछेगा तो ये ट्रेंड नंबर ऑफ पेनल्टीज के हिसाब से पूछेगा, ना कि वैल्यू ऑफ पेनल्टी से. सो वैल्यू ऑफ पेनल्टी कैन बी इग्नोर्ड, नथिंग टू वरी. अब इसको अगर देखें तो क्वेश्चन का आंसर क्या होगा, 1 सेकेंड, माय बैड. ठीक है, अगर हम देखें, कंसिडर द फॉलोइंग स्टेटमेंट. RBI has imposed total 353 penalties aggregating 54.78 crore on regulated entities. That is correct. Cooperative banks have received highest number of penalties amounting to 15.63 crores. That is true. Private banks were penalized 11.1 crores. नहीं sir, this is the data for public sector banks. Public sector banks का ये data है, private banks का ये data नहीं है. Private banks का जो data that is 14.8 crores. Enforcement action covered areas including cyber security, IRAC norms, KYC, CRI, LC, CIC submissions. That is true. RBI penalized 37 non-banking financial companies with a total penalty value of 7.29 crores. That is also correct. तो यहाँ पे B option फिर से correct answer है. 1, 2, 4, 5 is correct, but the third statement is wrong. So answer is going to be 1, 2, 4 and 5. क्लियर हो गया, समझ आ गया. आगे बढ़ू, कोई डाउट? आपने अगर नोटिस किया हो तो मैंने सिर्फ और सिर्फ न्यूज का वो पार्ट आपके लिए समरी में लिखा है, विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, जहां से डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन फेज 1 में बनने के चांसेस हैं. एंड आई थिंक यू मस्ट बी एंजॉइंग इट. मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन. द नेक्स्ट न्यूज इज फर्स्ट निवेशक शिविर by IEPFA and SEBI has been organized. So what is it? Sir, Investors Education and Protection Fund Authority, which is operating under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs in partnership with SEBI, has launched first Niveshak Shivir. Niveshak means investor. Shivir means campaign. Location is Pune, Maharashtra. Objective is basically to promote financial literacy and assist investors in claiming unclaimed dividends as well as शेयर्स. तो भैया इन्वेस्टर्स को इन्फॉर्म करना कि अगर आपके शेयर्स अनक्लेम्ड पड़े हैं तो भैया उनको जाकर क्लेम कर लो. तो उसके लिए ये बेसिक शिविर जो था दैट वाज बेसिकली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड. ठीक है, मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. की हाइलाइट्स आर 450 प्लस क्लेमेंट्स पार्टिसिपेटेड, 19 सर्विस benefits or service supports were provided for KYC updates, nomination changes. Search facility enabled participants to check whether they have any kind of unclaimed share or dividend for themselves or family members. NSDL brochure, investor guide to claiming unclaimed share and dividends, simplified claim process and required documents like PAN, Aadhaar, entitlement letter and whatnot. Unclaimed dividend का मतलब क्या है सर? वो dividend which is unpaid for 7 years and after 7 years it is termed as unclaimed dividend and it is transferred into the IEPF. लेकिन अगर हम बात करें पे आउट कंपनी ने डिक्लेयर कर दिया बट आपने रिसीव नहीं किया क्योंकि आपका एड्रेस चेंज हो गया या आपका बैंक डिटेल्स वैलिड नहीं है, या देयर इज अ डेथ ऑफ द शेयर होल्डर, ignorance or neglect of the shareholder, तो उस केस में that accumulation small unpaid dividend can grow substantially over the period of time. Dividend unclaimed for 7 years are transferred into IPF which is managed by MOCA. Purpose क्या था इस शिविर का? Simplify grievance redressal, educate investors about claim process and document requirement, as well as promote financial inclusion and awareness. So that was the all about निवेशक शिविर. अब इसको पढ़ते हैं, इससे रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस सॉल्व करते हैं. निवेशक शिविर was launched by IEPFA in partnership with SEBI in Pune, Maharashtra. True. More than 450 claimants participated. 19 services offered, or 19 machines offered KYC updates and nomination changes to. Dividend unclaimed for 5 years? No, sir. Unclaimed for 7 years. NSDL provide brochure detailing claim process and required documents. True. Unclaimed dividend may arise due to reasons such as stakeholders neglect, death without nominee, or change in address not uploaded. That is true. So answer to this particular question is going to be B option. 1, 2, 4 and 5 are correct. ठीक है जी, आगे बढ़ते हैं. अगला question. The next question is insured bank accounts in India. Insured bank accounts in India, if we talk about DICGC. DICGC is the RBI wholly owned subsidiary which is responsible to insure the public deposits with the bank. And according to the data which has been published, as of September 2024, 96.7 lakh crore accounts were in 96.7 lakh crore value of deposit was insured, in comparison to 90 lakh crores last year, which shows an increase of 7.11%. Account fully insured, if I talk about the fully insured account, is 97.7% within 5 lakh insurance limit. We all know that 5 lakh rupees per individual per bank is the limit. Last time this percentage was 97.9, but now it is 97.7%. But share of insured amount is 46.3% of the टोटल असेसेबल डिपॉजिट. तो जो आपका टोटल डिपॉजिट वैल्यू है उसमें से जो टोटल डिपॉजिट वैल्यू में से इंश्योर्ड वैल्यू है दैट इज ओनली 46.3% बिकॉज ऑफ द क्लॉज 5 लाख रुपीस पर इंडिविजुअल पर बैंक. ठीक है, तो नंबर ऑफ अकाउंट जो है दे आर 97% इंश्योर्ड, बट अगर डिपॉजिट की बात करें दैट इज ओनली 46% इंश्योर्ड विच वाज 47% अर्लियर. DICGC charge premium for this service and the premium is 0.12% which is charged on your deposit value. So a deposit insurance fund, that means the surplus funds with DIGC has increased by 15.2% to 2.29 lakh crore as of 31st March 2025, which has been an increase. और ये increase important है क्योंकि यही वो पैसा है जिससे claim pay किया जाता by the DICGC. Reserve ratio is 2.21% of insured deposit, which is up from 2.02% of the year earlier. Insurance premium collected is around 26,000 crore rupees. Future consideration, RBI may consider this cap और इसे हो सकता है बढ़ा दे 10 लाख करते if required, checking out not the number of accounts insured but checking out the value of deposit insured. इसके basis पे अगर revision हो तो हो सकती है, maybe in near future. Next is consider the following statement regarding insured bank deposits in India. अगर मैं insured bank deposits in India की बात करूं, insured deposits under DICGC reached 96.7 lakh crore and it has witnessed an increase of 7.11%. That is true. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, exactly correct है ये statement. Out of the total accounts, 97.7% accounts are insured. That is true. The insured amount now constitutes, no sir, now it constitutes 46%. Earlier it constitutes 47.5%. तो अभी जो है that is 46.3%. Deposit insurance fund has witnessed a growth and it has reached to 2.29 lakh crores as of 31st March. That is true. RBI has suggested the periodic revision of 5 lakh insurance cap if necessary. That is true. So answer is going to be again B option. Third statement is wrong. Clear हो गया जी? समझ आ गया। ये डेटा अगर आपको याद हो तो आरबीआई के एनुअल रिपोर्ट में भी मैंने आपके साथ डिस्कस किया था एंड आई एम प्रीटी श्योर दिस डेटा इज एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर टू यू। अगला, मेंटेनेंस ऑफ कैश रिजर्व रेशियो। तो आरबीआई ने रिसेंटली कैश रिजर्व रेशियो को कट डाउन किया फ्रॉम 4% to 3%, but RBI said that RBI asked the banks to decrease this CRR in 4 tranches. September में you reduce it by 0.25%, तो reduce हो गया, it will be 3.75. In October it will be 3.5%. In November starting it will be reduced to 3.25%, and in November end it will be reduced finally to 3%, जिससे almost मार्केट में 2-2.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए की जो लिक्विडिटी है दैट इज गोइंग टू इंक्रीज। सो दिस इज दिस डन। लिक्विडिटी कंडीशन की अगर हम बात करें तो आरबीआई ने अराउंड 9.5 लाख करोड़ रुपीस लिक्विडिटी इंजेक्ट की है सिंस जनवरी 2025। कंपोनेंट्स की बात करें, ओपन मार्केट परचेजेस 5.2 लाख करोड़, टर्म वीआरआर ऑप्शंस 2.1 करोड़। ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन से आरबीआई ने जो मार्केट में लिक्विडिटी दी है दैट इज अराउंड 5 लाख करोड़। वेरिएबल रैपो रेट से 2.1 लाख करोड़, और जो यूएसडी यानी कि यूएस डॉलर और आईएनआर का स्वैप किया, परचेजिंग यूएस डॉलर अगेंस्ट आईएनआर, दैट वाज आल्सो अराउंड 2 लाख करोड़। तो आप ये वैल्यूज रफली याद रख सकते हैं। मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी ट्रांसमिशन, पॉलिसी रेट कट ऑफ 50 बेसिस पॉइंट, weighted average call rate moderated to 70 basis point. Weighted average lending rate on fresh and outstanding loan has also decreased. That means your monetary policy is transmitting. Weighted average domestic term deposit rate on fresh and outstanding deposit has declined by 27 basis point and 1 basis point. It's talking about the domestic deposit rate. It is deposit rate and this is loan rate. तो loan और deposit दोनों में फर्क है rate of interest का, I hope you remember. उसके अलावा इम्पैक्ट ऑफ सीआरआर कट, इसकी वजह से 2.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए की लिक्विडिटी मार्केट में इंक्रीज होगी। दीज टर्म्स हैव बीन ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड। वेटेड एवरेज कॉल रेट क्या है सर? इट रिप्रेजेंट्स द ओवरनाइट अनसिक्योर्ड मनी मार्केट रेट which reflects the current liquidity in the market. अगर this weighted average call rate is very, I would say it's pretty above or pretty below from repo rate, that means repo rate is not in sync with the market scenarios and the market conditions. तो ये जो कॉरिडोर है that is MSF और SDF, इसके बीच में है repo rate। अगर इसके बीच में ही close to repo rate your weighted average call rate stays, that means your economy is doing well and your RBI monetary policy is implemented in a good manner. Now let's talk about the next question. Moving on to the next question, just give me a second. The next question says the CRR was reduced by 100 basis point in 4 tranches to reach 3% of NDTL by November 29, 2025. That is true. Cut in CRR is expected to release 2.5 lakh crore rupees of liquidity in the market. That is true. Weighted average call rate is the overnight call money rate chosen as operating target of monetary policy in India. True. A decrease in CRR increases the cost of funds for the banks. अगर मैं CRR को कम करता हूं तो बैंक का जो cost of funds है that will decrease. Why it will decrease? सर 100 रुपए पे आपने डिपॉजिट लिया 4% पे, है ना? You accepted the deposit of 100 rupees at 4%, out of which 4% is CRR. तो बाकी 96 rupees पे you have to pay 4 rupees as interest. तो 4 rupees interest for 96. आप इसका रेशियो जब निकालेंगे, so if I'm not wrong, this is 100/14. तो ये 100/14 का रेशियो है। अगर यही मैंने CRR को 100 से 3% कर दिया, CRR को 4 से 3 कर दिया, तो अब आप 97 पे जो एक्चुअली रिटर्न पे कर रहे हैं दैट इज 4% विद रिस्पेक्ट टू 97, तो इसका जो इम्पैक्ट है दैट विल नॉट इंक्रीज, रादर इट विल डिक्रीज. इट विल नॉट इंक्रीज, रादर इट विल डिक्रीज. तो CRR, a decrease in CRR increases the cost of fund. No sir, it decreases the cost of fund. कैसे डिक्रीज करेगा कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड? सर पहले आप 96 से 96 के ऊपर टेक्निकली 4 रुपए पे करके प्रॉफिट कमाना चाह रहे थे, आगे जब इसको लोन पे देंगे, लेकिन अब आप सेम अमाउंट या सेम ₹4 पे कर रहे हैं फॉर 97, तो आपका जो आउटफ्लो है दैट इज डिक्रीज्ड, आपका जो आउटफ्लो है दैट इज डिक्रीज, सो इट्स अ गुड कॉल, सो इट इज अ गुड कॉल, दैट इज बेनिफिशियल. RBI liquidity corridor comprises MSF rate as per upper bound and SDF as per lower bound, and our repo rate is the middle one. That is true. So उसके बेसिस पे अगर हम चले, उसके बेसिस पे अगर हम चले तो मेरा आंसर क्या बनेगा? सो मेरा आंसर बनेगा 1 2 3 5. तो 1 2 3 5 यानी बी ऑप्शन मेरा करेक्ट आंसर बन गया. ठीक है जी, क्लियर हो गया, समझ आ गया? कोई दिक्कत कोई परेशानी है तो पूछ लो. अगला क्वेश्चन है रिलेटेड टू एक्सटर्नल कमर्शियल बोरिंग्स. व्हेन अ कंपनी or an Indian entity, individual firm, company borrow from a foreign entity, that borrowing is known as external commercial borrowing. So recently, Adani Airport has raised $750 million via external commercial borrowing. So amount raised is $750 million. Purpose is basically to refinance existing 400 million debt. तो जो आपकी पहले 400 million debt है उसे आप refinance करोगे. Then you fund infrastructure upgrades and capacity expansion at 6 airports like Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Bengaluru, Jaipur, Guwahati, Trivandrum. Non-aeronautical expansion होगी, यानी retail, F&B, duty free shops, इनमें expansion होगा. Aeronautical में expansion नहीं होगा. Interest rate is approximately 7.5%. Lead bank is First Abu Dhabi Bank. उसके अलावा we have other banks as well. So what is external commercial borrowing? We all know that. I'll give you a quick review. Loan availed by Indian entities from the non-resident lenders, commercial bank loans, supplier buyer credit, bonds, floating rate notes, credit from export credit agencies, multilateral financial institutions. कुछ भी ऐसा फंड आएगा तो that will be ECB. Minimum average maturity should be 3 years. Can be denominated in INR or any convertible currency. Restriction cannot be used for stock market investment or real estate. Monitored by Department of, what is this DEA? Any idea? Guys, what is this DEA, which is under Ministry of Finance? DEA under MOF, so that is Department of Economic Affairs. Monitored by Department of Economic Affairs and RBI through automatic route and approval route. Benefits cheaper funding. Why this borrowing is done? Because it's cheap. फॉरेन करेंसी फॉर इंपोर्ट अच्छे से मिल गया, आपको एक्सचेंज रेट का लॉस या एक्सचेंज रेट का रिस्क नहीं झेलना पड़ा, और एक्सेस टू लार्ज लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल इज अवेलेबल. और वैसे भी एज पर द करंट सिनेरियो इन द ग्लोबल मार्केट, lending is highly preferable by the foreign players because they are earning pretty good returns in comparison to the investment avenues they have in their local market. So strategic significance, it will help Adani Airport improve financial flexibility, support both capacity expansion and revenue diversification, strengthen India's connectivity and infrastructure. Now let's consider the following statements. Adani Airport $750 million. External commercial borrowing refers to loan raised by Indian entities from non-resident lenders with a minimum average of maturity 3 years. True. ECB proceeds can be used to invest in Indian stock market. No. Adani Airport plans to use parts of ECB to refinance debt and parts to upgrade its 6 airports infrastructure. True. The loan was raised approximately at 7.5% interest. ECB in India is monitored alone by RBI. No, sir. It is not monitored alone by RBI. It is monitored by DEA under MOF as well as RBI. So they are collectively monitoring it. WMA कहाँ था? WMA यहाँ कहीं था क्या? वैसे तो वेज एंड मीन्स एडवांसेस है जो मेरे दिमाग में सबसे पहले आ रहा है, बट इस स्लाइड पे कहीं WMA है क्या? कहीं मैं गलत ना समझा दूं. आपने रैंडम क्वेश्चन पूछा है? अच्छा, ऑप्शन डी. पता नहीं आप क्या पूछना चाह रहे हैं. वेज एंड मीन्स एडवांसेस यहाँ तो कहीं रेफर्ड है ही नहीं. वेज एंड मीन्स एडवांसेस यहाँ तो, अच्छा वैसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, बिल्कुल इंपॉर्टेंट है. उसका इंपॉर्टेंस ये है कि वेज एंड मीन्स एडवांसेस के तहत state government as well as central government, they can borrow extra funds from RBI in order to cope up with their extra expenses, and this is a short term lending which is done by RBI to the government in order to manage their short-term mismatch. That is WMA. वैसे तो पूरा टॉपिक है, मैंने पढ़ाया भी है, तो आप देख लीजिएगा, शायद यूट्यूब पर भी मेरी वीडियो मिल जाए फॉर द सेम, नहीं तो इसको पढ़ के जरूर जाइएगा, क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है। और WMA की लिमिट हर साल RBI नोटिफाई करता है, इट इज नॉट प्री फिक्स्ड, इट इज नॉट प्री डिसाइडेड। नेक्स्ट, EU Small Finance Bank collaborates with IFSC for Climate Risk Advisory Program. So EU Small Finance Bank will integrate climate risk into governance, strategic planning, risk management, and ESG disclosures, aligning with international standards and evolving regulatory expectations. So International Finance Corporation will act as ESG and climate risk advisor, supporting EU Small Finance Bank to quantify, disclose, manage climate related फाइनेंशियल रिस्क। वैसे तो मैं बैंक वाइज न्यूज नहीं कराता, लेकिन हाँ क्लाइमेट रिलेटेड था इसलिए मैंने इंक्लूड कर ली। फिजिकल रिस्क असेसमेंट होगा, इवैल्यूएट लोन पोर्टफोलियो एक्सपोजर टू फिजिकल हैजार्ड्स लाइक फ्लड्स, एक्सट्रीम वेदर, सुनामी एंड व्हाट नॉट, डेवलप risk heat map highlighting vulnerable geographies and sectors, use IPCC climate scenarios and long-term projections up to 2100, that is 22nd century तक के जो आपके पास टारगेट्स हैं उनको एज्यूम करते हुए you will be identifying the physical risk. Transition risk assessment, examine the financial exposure for policy changes and market transition. For example, कल को गवर्नमेंट डीजल एंड CNG व्हीकल्स को बैन कर दे और कहे कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स आर अलाउड टू रन ऑन द इंडियन रोड्स, तो उससे क्या होगा सर? उससे बहुत सारी कंपनीज का बहुत सारा लॉस होगा, स्पेशली द लॉजिस्टिक कंपनीज एज वेल एज द कैब सर्विस प्रोवाइडिंग कंपनीज। सो वो पार्ट जो है दैट इज अंडर द ट्रांजिशन रिस्क। फाइनेंस emission calculation, measure scope 3 category 15 emissions across corporate loans or SME finance, real estate and sovereign bonds. Apply partnership for carbon accounting financials methodology for the financial year 2025-26. Technical execution में IFC collaborate with Step Change, which is a Bengaluru based climate risk solution provider for analytical modeling and risk quantification. Strategic significance की बात करें तो इससे फायदा क्या होगा? EU Small Finance Bank का जो climate risk resilience and ESG compliance will improve. It will support informed decision making and risk aware lending practices, position the bank to meet global best practices in the climate risk management. So this is the strategic benefit. Here we go with the question. Question को पढ़िए, give me the answers in the comment section. Okay. So physical risk assessment will include evaluating AU Small Finance Bank's exposure to natural hazards, That is true. Transition risk assessment focuses on potential financial losses due to policy shift. That is true. Financed emission will be calculated for scope 1 and scope 2 emission. Please इस point को ध्यान से पढ़िए. For scope 1 and scope 2 emission, is this point correct? Is this point correct? नहीं सर, ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ scope 2 के लिए calculate होगा, not for scope 1. Step Change Bengaluru based firm will assist in analytical modeling through the program aims to integrate climate risk into governance frameworks, strategic planning, risk management, ESG disclosure. That is true. So उसके हिसाब से third statement is wrong. B option is the correct answer. अगला question देखो. RBI has come up with its regulatory framework for microfinance loans. I hope you all remember microfinance loans are the collateral free loan which is given to the household with yearly income up to 3 lakh rupees. So it covers all the commercial banks, NBFCs, cooperative banks, microfinance institutes, housing finance companies. Definition मैंने आपको बता दी. Assessment of the household income कैसे calculate करेंगे household income को? So it will be regulated entity must have board approved policies for income assessment. Data submitted by credit information company will also be used to identify or to cross check or to verify the income of the household. उसके अलावा we have indicative methods like household profiles, members, accommodation, amenities, assets. Then we have household income, primary, secondary source of income, sector of operation, employment type, frequency, remittance, pension, government transfer. ये भी एक criteria है. Along with that, we check the household expense, regular and irregular. Ensure no double counting when aggregating income for all the earning members. Loan repayment limits, maximum 50% of the household income should be the EMI. So EMI should be up to 50% of monthly household income, which include the principal as well as interest component. Pricing loans, board approved policy on interest rate determination. Components will be cost of funds, risk premium and margin. मतलब जब आप calculate करेंगे what will be the lending rate for the loan given in the category of micro loans or microfinance loans, so that will be based on cost of funds, risk premium, क्योंकि यहाँ पे risk ज़्यादा because of no collateral, and you have to keep your margins as well. Ceiling on interest and other charges will again be decided by the board policies. No prepayment penalty. That means if you are foreclosing your loan or you are making your loan repayment in advance, then no penalty will be charged. Delayed payment penalty only on overdue amount. Interest rate displayed prominently in offices, literature as well as website of the bank, so that everyone should be aware कि ये बैंक कितने रेट पे माइक्रो फाइनेंस लोन्स प्रोवाइड करता है. नेक्स्ट इज की फैक्ट स्टेटमेंट. व्हाट इज दिस की फैक्ट स्टेटमेंट? सर ये बोरोअर को प्रोवाइड की जाएगी बिफोर लोन एग्जीक्यूशन. इट विल बी रिटन इन सिंपल वर्ड्स, अंडरस्टैंडेबल लैंग्वेज, एंड उस पर बोरोअर के सिग्नेचर लेने होंगे, विच विल इंक्लूड द एनुअल. व्हाट इज दिस APR? Any idea, guys? Annual payable rate. Is it the case? Is it annual payable rate? So it is annual percentage rate, which means annual percentage rate is calculated as lending rate plus charges. तो जब आप charges को भी include करके एक effective rate निकालते हैं, which you have to pay, that is APR. So it includes APR calculation, amortization schedule, fees and charges. Everything should be written on this key fact statement. Key fact statement validity should be greater than or equals to 3 working days. Loans greater than equal to 7 days and 1 day for loans less than 7 days. अगर लोन की टाइमलाइन 7 डेज से कम है तो आपका की फैक्ट स्टेटमेंट 1 दिन के लिए वैलिड है, उसी में आपको एक्सेप्ट करके वापस देना होगा बैंक को. और अगर आपका लोन 7 दिन से ज्यादा समय के लिए तो 3 दिन के लिए वैलिड आपको की फैक्ट स्टेटमेंट मिलेगी. पढ़ लो, समझ लो और उसको साइन करके वापस दे दो. अमोर्टाइजेशन शेड्यूल का मतलब रीपेमेंट शेड्यूल. लोन अमाउंट फर्स्ट साइकिल में 75,000, सब्सिक्वेंट साइकिल में 1,25,000. टोटल डेटनेस can be up to 1,25,000. Tenure is 24 months for loans greater than 30,000. Collateral free prepayment already discussed. Flexibility in repayment periodicity. एनबीएफसी माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूट्स के लिए एक क्राइटेरिया है, मिनिमम 60% ऑफ द टोटल असेट्स ऑन क्वालिफाइंग एसेट। पहले 80 था, 80% से इट हैज बीन रिड्यूस टू 75, देन 70, अब इसे रिड्यूस करके कर दिया 60%। यानी कि इफ अ माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूट इज प्रोवाइडिंग लोन, out of total loan or out of their total asset, 60% of the lending should be done to the micro finance category only. Non-microfinance institutes up to 25% of total assets in the microfinance loans, not more than that. अगर आप एक NBFC है but you are not MFI है, then in that case your limit is up to 25%. In case of net owned funds, NBFC microfinance institute current net owned fund requirement is 5 crores. 7 crore by 31st March 2025 or 10 crores by 31st March 2027. These are the net owned fund criteria which has been set up for NBFCs. ठीक है जी, विनु क्लियर हो गया आपका डाउट अमोर्टाइजेशन का मतलब? कमिंग बैक टू द क्वेश्चन, household income for microfinance eligibility is capped at 3 lakh per annum. True. Maximum repayment obligation of a household can be 60% of its monthly income. पढ़ लो एक बार, करो अटेम्प्ट। So this is 50%. Key fact statement must include APR. That is true. First cycle microfinance loan is up to 75,000 with zero collateral. That is true. NBFCs should maintain at least 75% total asset as qualifying asset by 2027. No, sir, it has been now reduced to 60%. It has been now reduced to 60%. So keeping that in mind, इसमें जो हमारा correct answer बनेगा वो क्या बनेगा? So correct answers बनेंगे 1, 3, 4. So A option is correct. आपका fifth and second option is incorrect. बेटा ये 60% of the monthly income वाले fact में 50% है. So this is 50%. यहाँ 50 होना चाहिए था, यहाँ 60 होना चाहिए था. Then they would have been correct. तो आंसर क्या बनेगा? A option. Clear हो गया? Any doubt? Is this point clear? Okay, moving on to the next. अगला क्वेश्चन क्या कहता है? वर्ल्ड बैंक हैज इशूड ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेक्टस जून 2025. तो ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेक्टस इज प्रेजेंटेड बाय वर्ल्ड बैंक. उसका जून 2025 का जो प्रॉस्पेक्टस है उसको पढ़ रहे हैं. इंडिया स्पेसिफिक जीडीपी फाइनेंशियल ईयर 2025-26 वर्ल्ड बैंक 6.3, IMF 6.4, RBI 6.5, पिच 6.9. पिच थोड़ा ज्यादा इसलिए याद रख लेना. For next financial year 6.5, next to next financial year 6.7%. India will remain the fastest growing large economy. Reasons for moderation: demand side थोड़ी slowdown हुई है in terms of investment. Supply side decelerate in industrial output growth. Sectoral performance: construction and service sector has shown steady growth. Agriculture recovery from the previous drought supported by the rural demand. Fiscal outlook की बात करें, there is a gradual fiscal consolidation, increasing tax revenue, declining the current expenditure, public debt to GDP ratio target at 50% for the financial year 2030-31, जो कि current center government debt to GDP है 56.1% and total government का डेट टू जीडीपी रेशियो इज अराउंड 81%. ग्लोबल सिनेरियो की बात करें तो ग्लोबल जीडीपी 2.3% फॉर द करंट फॉर द 2025 कैलेंडर ईयर एंड इट इज 26 कैलेंडर ईयर इट विल बी 2.4%. Downward revision in 70% of the economies across regions and income groups, but India is showing a good growth. Global inflation estimate by World Bank is also given. Reasons for slowdown: heightened trade tension, policy uncertainty. Recommendations क्या है वर्ल्ड बैंक की? Focus on boosting domestic revenue generation, target fiscal spending towards vulnerable households and reinforce fiscal policy framework to ensure stability. Question देखते हैं. India's GDP growth is projected at 6.3% in the financial year 2025-26, revised down from 6.7%, revised down from 6.7%. That is correct. Earlier it was 6.7%. This is something which you need to remember. Next is the slowdown in Indian growth is attributed to weak performance in agriculture and service sector. No, sir, service sector is doing well. Service sector is not weak. That is wrong. India's public debt to GDP is projected to decline gradually to around 50%. That is true. World Bank revised global growth forecast downward for nearly 70% of the economy's true global inflation projected will rise. No, sir, it will ease to 2.5%. So answer is going to be 1345. So 1345 is the D option. So D option is the correct answer. बेटा फिफ्थ ऑप्शन इज अच्छा सॉरी मैंने फिफ्थ ऑप्शन खुद तो गलत किया. सॉरी मैंने गलत तो मार्क कर दिया था, पता नहीं यहाँ क्यों सही मान लिया. 134 is correct. So A option is correct. Absolutely correct. Uncle, you are correct. Moving to the next one. SBI dividend and Indian banking sector performance, बहुत important data. Public sector banks, private banks, they have performed really very well. Their profits have increased. So SBI has performed really very well. It is the bank with highest profit among the public sector banks, even the highest profit among all the commercial banks of the country. पढ़ लेते हैं. Dividend paid to the government is 8,000 crore rupees. Dividend per share is around 15 rupees. Government of India stake in SBI is 57%. Net profit was around 70,000 crore rupees, which is up from the last data by 16%. Remember that. Next point says net interest income. Net interest income is 42,000 crore for the quarter, and net interest margin is 3% for SBI. Remember this data, it is important. Remember this data, it is important. Moving on to the next point. One second. Moving on to the next point. What does the next point says? The next point talks about total industry net profit, total banking sector or industry net profit, 3.71 lakh crore, which has increased 14 times in last 10 years. Government banks total profit is 1.83 lakh crore, which has witnessed a jump of 26%. Private banks profit is 1.87 lakh crore, which is showing a growth of 7%. Top banks SBI, then HDFC, then ICICI. Reasons for the record performance: improved asset quality, NPA is all-time low. Recoveries under IBC around 3.9 lakh crore recovered. Government capital infusion around 3.15 lakh crore since 2015. Credit growth, there is a steady credit growth across the sectors. Public sector banks turn around, which means all public sector banks, they have reported profits, and bank like PNB has recorded a profit of 102% increase. Reforms include 4 R's, very important, 4R strategy: recognizing NPAs, resolution and recovery, recapitalization done by the government, reforms in governance and financial ecosystem. Other reforms: bank amalgamation, digital banking adoption, lending discipline and governance improvements are the some of the points which are important. Now, if I talk about the question, SBI has paid around 8,000 crore rupees to the government of India. Per share is 15 rupees. That is true. Government banks recorded a profit of 1.83 lakh crore rupees. That is true. 26% increase, while the private bank, they have witnessed a profit growth of only 7%. So this is wrong. NPA in Indian bank sector fell to 2.4%, making a decadal low. That is true. SBI contributed over 40% of the total profits of the public sector banks. अगर public sector banks के total profits की बात करें, वो है लगभग 1.83 लाख. उसमें लगभग 70,000 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट SBI का है. तो 70 डिवाइडेड बाय 183, 7 डिवाइडेड बाय 18, ठीक है, इट्स अराउंड 40%. दैट इज करेक्ट. PNB achieved highest profit growth among the public sector banks of 102%. That is correct. So answer is going to be B option. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 and 5 are absolutely the correct answer. 1, 3, 4, 5. क्या कर रहा हूँ? मार्क सही किया, लिख गलत दिया. So answer is D option. That is correct. Next. Guys, if you haven't liked the session yet, I would request you quickly hit the like button. And if you haven't shared the session yet, do share it with your friends. क्योंकि इतने कम लाइव काउंट पे ऑनेस्टली स्पीकिंग मज़ा नहीं आता. ऐसा लगता है कि इतनी मेहनत भी की, इतने अच्छे से नए नोट्स भी बनाए, चीज़ों को अच्छे से इंक्लूड भी किया फॉर यू ऑल, बट शायद you all are not giving that importance. It's okay, it's up to you, but I think you should think about it. अगर आप ऐसा करोगे तो I will lose that enthusiasm to give my 100% for this particular session, which will undoubtedly going to have a negative impact on you guys only. So try to share this session with your friends. Try to ask your friends to join this session in large numbers, so that I can get that boost, I can get that enthusiasm, so that I can give my 100% while taking up this particular session. Rest, it's up to you. Chalo. Let's move on to the next news. The next news talks about an organization that is VVGNLI. पहले तो ये बताओ इसकी full form क्या है? VVGNLI stands for what? Sir, it stands for VV Giri National Labour Institute. So VV Giri National Labour Institute has given a study on gig workers in India. Gig and platform workforce expected to grow 62 million by 2047, accounting for nearly 15% of the non-agriculture workforce. Projection methodology is based on 2022 Niti Aayog report and applied exponential smoothing error trend and seasonality model. तो उन्होंने क्या किया, 2022 में जो एक डेटा आया था उसके ऊपर अपना फॉर्मेट्स लगाकर, अपनी एक्सपेक्टेशंस लगाकर ये डेटा क्रिएट किया. करंट एंड नियर फ्यूचर 2020 में देयर वर नियरली 3 मिलियन वर्कर्स in 11 Indian platform companies. Now by 2030 we are expecting 23 million workers in the gig worker force category and approximately 7% of non-agriculture workforce. Potential constraints: growth may be limited to 32.5 million only by 2047 due to technological disruption, regulatory compliances and economic shocks. Sector expansion from ride sharing and food delivery. Now gig workers are involved in healthcare, education, creative services and professional consulting. Key recommendations: recognize rights to collective bargaining and unionization of these gig workers, establish clarity of gig worker classification, set up statutory national registry for the gig workers. Global example is UK, Canada, Spain, Netherlands legally recognize gig workers, providing a framework for India. Now consider the statements. Gig workforce in India is projected to grow 62 million by 2047. 62 million by 2047, that is correct. Nearly 15% of the total non-agriculture workforce, that is also correct. Study used 2022 Niti Aayog data, that is true. Gig workforce growth may be limited to 32.5 million by 2047 in the extreme conditions, that is true. The study recommended recognizing rights to the collective bargaining and establishing statutory registry of gig workers, that is true. Ride sharing, food delivery remain the only major sectors. They are not the major sector today. Many other sectors have come into the part, and due to their introduction this has been done. So this is wrong. But according to me, if you see, नीति आयोग के डेटा को क्या लीनियर रिग्रेशन मॉडल पे प्रोजेक्ट किया गया? नहीं सर, दिस इज, अगर आप टेक्निकली जाएंगे, अगर आरबीआई आपको फंसाना चाहेगा, दैट विल बी एक्सपोनेंशियल स्मूथिंग एरर ट्रेंड एंड सीजनैलिटी मॉडल. सो इट इज नॉट लीनियर रिग्रेशन, इट इज एक्सपोनेंशियल स्मूथिंग एरर मॉडल. तो उसके हिसाब से सेकंड स्टेटमेंट भी रॉन्ग हो जाएगी. सो आंसर इज गोइंग टू बी 1, 3, 4. बी ऑप्शन इज करेक्ट. बढ़िया. लास्ट न्यूज ऑफ द डे. बाकी आप मुझे लगता है पीडीएफ से कर लेंगे, आई गेस, है ना. वैसे तो मैं लेके आया था 60 न्यूज़, टॉप 60 मई जून से, बट लुकिंग आउट दी लाइव काउंट मुझे लगता है कि सारी न्यूज़ डिस्कस करने का फ़ायदा है. So I'll provide you with the PDF. You can go through with it. So RBI has granted scheduled bank status to Vishweshwar Sehkari Bank Limited, Pune, Maharashtra. Scheduled banks under the Section 42 of RBI Act 1934 gets the title. Right now, it is the 50th cooperative bank in India to receive the scheduled bank status, and it is third from Pune. Scheduled bank overall बात करें तो minimum paid up capital 5 lakhs, eligible for RBI refinance and automatic clearing house membership. Scheduled urban cooperative banks की अगर हम बात करें, statutory liquidity ratio should be maintained. Liquidity ratio should be maintained in case of scheduled urban cooperative bank, that should be greater than equal to 25%, and average daily balance maintained should be greater than equals to 5% of NDTL with RBI. Capital adequacy ratio maintains CRAR above 3%, 3% above the minimum regulatory, that means 9 अगर minimum है तो 3% above it, that should be greater than or equals to 12%. Regulatory compliance, no major issues flagged by RBI, must comply with RBI supervisions and regulations. Urban cooperative banks 3-4 categories के हैं. Tier 1, we call them as Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 and Tier 4. Deposit up to 100 crores, 100 crores to 1000 crores, 1000 to 10,000 crores and greater than 10,000 crores. Deposits as per audited balance sheet on 31st March of the preceding financial year, उसके basis पे audit किया जाता है और categorize किया जाता है. If urban cooperative bank moves to a higher tier due to increased deposit, glide path of 3 years is provided to comply with the higher tier regulatory requirements. अगर आप थर्ड से फोर्थ टीयर में जा रहे हैं तो आपको 3 साल दिए जाएंगे कि इससे रिलेटेड जो टीयर 3 की कंडीशन से टीयर 4 की आपको नॉर्म्स को फुलफिल करना है, उसके लिए यू हैव 3 years टू फुलफिल देम. सो देयर इज नथिंग टू वरी. ठीक है जी, क्लियर. ओके. सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ द शेड्यूल बैंक स्टेटस इज एक्सेस टू आरबीआई लिक्विडिटी. अब आरबीआई की लिक्विडिटी को एक्सेस मिले, आपको आरबीआई की लिक्विडिटी से एक्सेस मिलेगा. यू कैन बोरो, यू कैन deposit your excess or surplus funds with RBI, enhance credibility and stability, ability to participate in clearinghouse operation, and it will strengthen regulatory and capital discipline. So let's find out the correct answer. To be classified as scheduled commercial bank, urban cooperative bank should maintain a minimum capital of 5 lakh rupees and daily balance of 5% of NDTL with RBI. True. Urban cooperative banks should maintain greater than equals to 25%. True. CRAR should be 3% greater than the RBI criteria is true. Urban cooperative bank moving to higher tier due to increased deposit immediately required. No sir, they will get a glide path of 3 years. There is no need to immediately apply. Schedule urban cooperative banks automatically gain eligibility. Schedule urban cooperative banks automatically gain eligibility for refinancing from RBI and membership in clearing houses operation. In clearing houses operation, बिल्कुल सही है सर. गेन एलिजिबिलिटी, अगर आप शेड्यूल बैंक है, यू विल गेट एलिजिबल टू गेट रीफाइनेंस एंड ऑटोमेटिक क्लियरिंग हाउस मेंबरशिप. दैट इज ट्रू. तो आंसर क्या बनेगा सर? 1 2 3 5 इज करेक्ट. बी ऑप्शन इज करेक्ट एंड दैट इज द करेक्ट आंसर. ठीक है जी, क्लियर हो गया. ओके, नो वरीज गाइस, नो वरीज. तो आज 20 क्वेश्चंस करते हैं. संडे को मे बी आप लोग फ्री रहेंगे, सो वी विल बी कमिंग अप विद पार्ट 2. रेस्ट 40 क्वेश्चंस विल बी कवर्ड in that session. अगर आपको ये लग रहा हो कि मैंने नहीं बनाए हैं questions, तो you can see that from my side everything is ready. I have already created 60 questions for you, the top 60 from the month of May and June. आपको आदत हो गई है 200-200 400-400 questions या 400-400 पेज की PDF पढ़ने की, जो कि मैं नहीं कर सकता because I have seen many of the platforms पे ऐसा हो रहा है. अब देखो PIB में तो you have ample of news. तो पीआईबी में तो जो एन नंबर ऑफ न्यूज है वो तो आएंगी एंड मनीष सर इज कवरिंग दैट. बट इन केस ऑफ फाइनेंस, स्पेशली फोकसिंग आरबीआई एंड बैंक एंड द अदर फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूट्स, you should go with very limited source, very limited number of questions which will help you to clear this exam. उसी थॉट के साथ मैंने मई जून को थोड़ा कंसाइज किया इन कंपैरिजन टू जुलाई एंड अगस्त. तो 60 क्वेश्चन है, बट मुझे लगता है आपके पास 60 क्वेश्चन का भी टाइम नहीं है. सो इट्स ओके, देखते हैं. इट्स ओके, अभी के लिए यहीं स्टॉप करते हैं. आई विल बी प्रोवाइडिंग यू द PDF ऑफ 20 क्वेश्चंस. इफ आई फील कि संडे तक आप लोग फ्री हो जाएंगे एज पर योर कमेंट्स इन द कमेंट सेक्शन, तो देख लेंगे. अदरवाइज आई विल प्रोवाइड यू द PDF ऑफ 60 क्वेश्चंस ऑन संडे इटसेल्फ. ठीक है. ओके, थैंक यू सो मच गाइज. इट्स ओके, नो वरीज. आई हैव अ नेक्स्ट सेशन एट 9 PM. सो वैसे भी ये सेशन मैं और ज़्यादा कंटिन्यू नहीं कर सकता था. I'll decide on the basis of your comments in the comment section that whether I will be coming live for part 2 or I will be giving you the complete PDF. No hard feelings, guys. It's okay. Your wish. Thank you so much. Good luck. God bless you all.